Okay. Hi everyone, this is SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com. I'm here with another review analysis this week. Today we're going to look at a game that I just finished recently. This is against a friend of the channel, a policy debater. I've done a couple of games against him. I think at least one is up here on YouTube. And here we go with another one. This is a game where my opponent plays very well, and or I play quite poorly for the first 15 moves or so, where he gets a very promising position. And as a side note, this is like what 3 videos in a row where I'm uploading games where I played badly, so I might need a break from chess, or I don't know. Anyway, so I want to take a look because, well, first let's see what white, my opponent was white. We'll look at it from his perspective. What he did to get an advantage, right? Because he played very well. And then how did it slip away? Because, that's important. So the opening was, let's just see if I can take a look. Here we go. So I was black. It's Sicilian defense. And I played my familiar Taimanov / Khan-like positions. I'm always happy when my opponents play knight c3. I always find in these positions, both as white and as black, that if we can get this structure in here, then it's just, I find black struggles to play so much. Or white can comfortably do very little and win. Like, that's it, because it's much easier for black to make mistakes in these structures. Right? I don't like other mainline Sicilians. I don't like this. Maybe the Sicilian isn't meant for me. Regardless, so most people actually play knight c3, which is fine by me. Queen c7. Then we get this g3. And I don't think I've ever played against this. Or if I have, it's been an incredibly long time. The fianchetto variations of the Sicilian. Quite interesting. And there's a lot more venom in here than I first thought. I thought it was, oh, he's just going to play a nothing move. But there's a strong positional basis here. Now, I remember reading years and years ago that against, these sidelines, or against, if white isn't playing the super aggressive mega attacks, then black, all you have to do is you develop all your pieces, but you develop them in order. And I mean this, sorry, in the e6 Sicilian. And so that means you develop this piece, then this piece, then this piece, then this piece. That's it. And I remember reading that, years and years ago, and I still remember it somehow, right? It's one of those weird pieces of advice, and I don't remember why. Anyway, I started that, so first I play a6, so that way I stop any, knight b5 jumps, because that might be unpleasant. He develops. I then play d6, so that way I can bring my bishop out. He plays rook e1. And now here, if I were to follow the advice, I'd play bishop b7 first, and then I'd play knight f6. And I was thinking about this, and I'm going, does it matter? Can I just play knight f6 first? Doesn't develop the knight make more sense? Does the bishop do anything? Right? Oddly, the bishop e7 is the best move. And the reason is, well, what was white's last move? He just played rook e1. And so his rook is on the open file, or it's on a file, facing my king. If I were to play bishop e7, I'm blocking that. If I play knight f6, I'm not. Now, does that make such a big deal? I mean, does it really matter? And I didn't really think about it, honestly. I'm just like, whatever, they're going to transpose. There's nothing white can do anyway. Do you see that thought process right there? There's nothing white can do anyway. It's just going to transpose. This is me not calculating, not thinking. Just going, nah. That was it. And then my opponent punishes it excellently. He plays knight takes c6. First step. Makes the exchange. And I thought this was a mistake, because I just took my bishop. Now my bishop's against his bishop's on a great square. I got the d7 square free, so I can always do something like this and bring my knight to this square or to this square in the future. I'm like, oh, I'm sitting so happy. This is why I'm a higher rated player. I'm going to win in a slow positional game. It's going to be amazing. What I needed to do is I needed to play b takes c6 in this position, which is much less nice. Because my bishop doesn't really want to be here. It's not doing anything. My queen looks kind of silly, staring at its own pawn. So I'm going to need to transfer it over. I don't really like having the a6 pawn here. I'm still fine, right? But it's a bit less fine, right? Which is why I played bishop takes c6. And again, I never asked myself, what is my opponent's threat? Why did he do his last move? And he has an incredibly thematic maneuver here. He plays the excellent knight d5. And it's brilliant. Very common move in the Sicilian and in many semi-open positions. It's attacking my queen, it's attacking the knight. And the point is, after take, oh, now we see this open e-file. It's check. He's going to pick the bit. Oh, my position is terrible. If I have to do something like this, oh gosh, this bishop is always got pressure against this pawn. He can play queen e2 with mega pressure on the e-file, and I don't know if I can ever castle. I'm in huge trouble. Bishop g5 can come, trying to exchange, works my pawn structure. Bishop f4, targeting the weak pawn. He can do anything. I think White's just winning here. So I can't take the knight, with the pawn, at least. Notice if bishop were already on e7, this sacrifice would do nothing, because there's no discovered check. I'd be able to wiggle around afterwards, and White might have initiative, but not enough for a piece. So it's like, oh shoot. So what do? The only thing I can do, again, I can't waste time retreating my queen. So I take with the bishop, then I play e5, trying to close the position. And my opponent continues to play very accurately. My king is in the center, his is not. He needs to open the center up, because if he can do that without me castling, huge trouble. f4. Excellent. I finally bring my bishop out, take, and we reach this position. So it's been 14 moves, the 15th move, and my opponent has played brilliantly. Let's see if I can learn to talk. Let's take stock of this position. What's happening? So he's castled, I haven't. So that's a big plus for him. He has two bishops. I have a bishop and a knight. An advantage for him, especially if he can open the game up. And here, one of the most thematic moves that White wants to do is White wants to play d6. If White can get this move in, then this bishop is going to spring absolutely to life all the way down this diagonal. Notice that if White does not play this move, if I can somehow blockade it, so for instance, if we just played normal moves, let's say, I don't know, it's like bishop e3, castle, queen d2, something like this. Now, things aren't so clear. This knight is on a good square, it's in front of the pawn. This bishop is only staring at its pawn. Now, this bishop is still a good piece, but it's nowhere near as good as it could be if this pawn were to disappear. That is sort of the main White goal, is if he wants to successfully advance this pawn. If he can do that, fully opening the position. All that said, White has a fantastic position, and he can play it in several different ways. He could play it slowly, he could play it quickly, he could do it safely, he could do it more aggressively, but he's got a very good position. And Black, I'm struggling. There's one thing White needs to be aware of, and that's back here, right after his beautiful sacrifice. Well, it's not really a sacrifice, right? Where he played f4. And this is a move that comes back and haunts us so often, because f4 is a beautifully crafted move. In many positions, it signals the attack, right? However, advancing the f-pawn also exposes our king to a check. And if you don't take care, right, if you're only thinking about your own moves, not your opponent's, eventual replies, then you could be a victim you could turn a winning game into a draw by some perpetual check, or worse, a winning game into a losing game. So if you look what happens, where is it? Right here. So he plays c4 here. At the time, I thought this wasn't the best move, but actually, I think this is a great move if you follow it up correctly. So I guess it's a pawn sacrifice. What it's doing is it's deflecting the queen. Now you might be thinking it's deflecting the queen from the e5 pawn, but the e5 pawn doesn't matter. Again, what's important isn't this pawn, what's important isn't the king in the center. What's important is this pawn moving to get this bishop fully into the game, because then you have two bishops on a wide open board. Queen takes c4. Now, if my opponent were to play d6 here, I think he's got fantastic chances. Yes, it's sort of a pawn sacrifice. I'm going to play queen c5 check. He will block. And then we're going to get into the following little exchange. Take, take, take. But now his bishop is wide open. He's going to take a pawn. Rook has to slide over. He takes another pawn. Material is equal. But we have an endgame. Two bishops, open board, two connected pass pawns. You might be thinking, aha, maybe black can take another pawn. But we've got bishop d4 here. Look at this, exclamation mark. Taking advantage of the pin. Now the pin's important. Forking a pawn and the rook. After a little bit of dancing, we get something like this. And look at this position. Bishop against knight. Advantage bishop. It's an open board. Two rooks. Rook behind the pass pawn. This rook is here. Going to struggle against it. This rook is stuck in the corner. How is the king is stuck in the corner? White might just have a winning endgame already, right here. Which means, back up here, I can't take this pawn. And if I don't take the pawn, let's say I castle, then white's going to play b3. Look at this. Two bishops on the open board. He's going to put his rooks behind his pass pawns. Two connected pass pawns. White has all the chances here. I don't know if it's winning. It's very close. It's very, very close. And a good endgame player would win this, most likely. It's a great position. And why this happened, it's because you played c4 to distract the queen, so that way you could play d6. That was the idea. And if my opponent were to do this, he would have, I don't know if he'd win, but he would have excellent chances. And it'd be the logical follow-up to the game. However, he played differently. Is that he took on e5, which is also very tempting, and it makes a lot of sense, because it looks like it's still threatening d6 because of the pin. It looks like queen e1 or queen e2 is coming with, again, pressure and a pin. It looks like black can't castle. And all that's true. Unfortunately, there's one other factor in this position, and that's white's king. And that's this diagonal, this check that I can give. And then after knight g4, all of a sudden, black coordinates beautifully against white's only weakness in this position. And that is, well, I'm threatening a check, and then, disaster here, coming on in. I'm also threatening the rook. What's best play here? This is interesting. I was looking at this line, queen e2, rook e2, so I check. He moves his king away. I come in with check. He gives up the exchange. But then, again, he's got d6. Bishop d6 coming in here. d6. So now, opening up this bishop, opening up lines. And things actually, they get a little bit messy here. It's not so clear. For instance, I could just take the pawn. You don't want to take because, whoops. That's no good. But you could do something like this. We got bishop g5. Look at this. Bishop wide open. Bishop wide open. My bishop's attacked. You have control of the back rank now. My rooks aren't doing anything yet. This is a game. This is interesting. Material, your pieces are much more active. My king might be a liability. I don't know. My position was bad at the beginning, so I will take this, right? But interesting. Instead, my opponent played, so after rook takes e5, knight g4, he played queen e2. So he's offering exchange of queens, forking. He's got pressure here. Everything looks good. Well then, after the queen d4 check, it's check. It's attacking the rook, and that's it. My opponent's beautiful position was spoiled because he didn't look at this first, right? Such a shame. So backing up, this is where I suggested here, you could play slowly, you could play quickly. C4 is in a very quick, aggressive way of going at it, but it's also possible to go slower. If you were worried about, my king, or you wanted to attack that way, you could play king h1 first, you get out of the way. Or you could play bishop e3, right? Then b3, c4, you could start launching yourself this way, right? Other possibilities. When you played c4, which is a perfectly fine move, you had to follow it up with the d6 idea. You had to do that. And when you didn't, that gave me time to transform the position because of this open f file, right? Just look at it back here. So let's go back to that position. Here, funny thing, chess blindness. I took with my queen. When I could have taken with my knight, and I don't know why I didn't. I don't think I even looked at this move. I was looking at this. Like, do I have a checkmate or something here? No, I don't. And then I was only looking at queen takes e5. I mean, it's still winning, but instead of winning a rook, I'm only up in exchange. So that's kind of funny. Anyway, so I could have won a lot easier. Oh gosh. But this is important because it still shows the theme of the d6 pawn advance. So I took, he took, I finally castle. And what's a good move for white here? Or what's white's idea? What white still needs to think about is to try and get this pawn advance. Now it's a bit riskier here now because if he plays d6, yes, he's opening up his bishop, but he's going to be opening my open. Talking is hard. You know how hard English is? If he gets rid of this pawn, he's also opening the d file, and his king is nowhere near as safe as it used to be. And if I can invade on the d file, he's in trouble. At the same time, that's his best plan. Is to see if he can get something like that in. Let's look what happens instead. We had bishop f4. I win a pawn. Yay, I'm greedy. Rook c1. And now he's thinking about coming in here. He's coming in. Now the theme is, again, this d6 advance. If he can do that, he's got play, he's got chances. And so I'm going to stop that. Bishop d6. And here's where the game is, without doubt, in my favor. If he were to take with the bishop, obviously he just loses the rook. Now he's down 2 rooks. He's in trouble. He could probably just resign this position. He probably should. So he can't take it. But also, because the bishop's in front of the pawn, this bishop can't do anything. It's going to take at least 2 moves. 1, 2, and now d6 doesn't even threaten anything anymore. And so he can't take it. And if he doesn't take, he played bishop e3. Right? Now my bishop is firmly guarding this pawn. He can't come in. This bishop's out of the game. I can take my time. I bring my rook in, and again, I'm threatening to take the bishop, and then win the rook. He defends. I take another pawn. I'm happy. Because now I have all the time in the world. White can't do anything. If this pawn is always blocking his bishop, if he's essentially playing without a bishop, this bishop isn't active enough, he's got nothing. Notice that the other idea white might have is his queen is near my king. Maybe he's got something like this. Maybe, trying to checkmate me. Let's actually back up for a second. For example, here, in this position, I had to make sure that something like this, I'm not losing, right? But because my queen controls the open diagonal, I'm fine. Yeah, and at the very least, I could always come back. Queen f6 with check. The bishop be forced to retreat. I could exchange it if I wanted to. It was never a worry. After rook e1, potentially bishop d4, because now it's stopping my queen from coming back, could be a threat. But if you're to play that, okay, I guess it's white's move. If you're to play something like that, bishop d4, well, after this check, I can now check with this, I can check with this, I could check anywhere white's defenseless to this coming attack. So I didn't have to worry about that. I had to calculate still, right? Even though I'm portraying this, aura of complete confidence, because I was incredibly confident in my position, I had to double check. I still need to calculate, because I knew what happened at the beginning of the game, where I was just thinking normally, I'll just play whatever. Yeah, this is a good move, I'm sure. And then I fell to that knight d5. So now I'm fully awake. Now, I'm not taking anything for granted. I'm looking at everything. And I'm making sure that I'm not going to fall victim to a cheapo after getting this good position. Anyway, so rook e1, I took a pawn, and then he played queen d7. The idea of, this is good, force my bishop to move, and then he can play d6, get the bishop into the game. He's also perhaps hitting these pawns over here, right? Wasn't too worried about that. Here, I'm happy to say my calculation training finally paid off. I've been trying to train my tactics more. That's one of my weaknesses. I'm going through an online course, trying to boost it up. And here I calculated, 7, 8 moves into advance. It was great, it was perfect, and it came to me quite easily, so I was very happy with this. Tactical way to finish this game off. And what I realized was, if you look at the position from here to here, is that the queen moved away from the king, and I've got a rook coming in, I've got a bishop coming in, and I've got a queen all the way around. And so I could be attacking with several pieces. And, well, rook takes e3. Rook takes e3, and the point, bishop c5. And so now, if the rook moves, queen f2 is checkmate. There's only 2 possible ways to move the rook, to save the rook, and to prevent checkmate. Either rook e2 or rook f3. If you were to play rook f3, well then there's a series of checks that leads to mate fairly quickly. Queen b1, then queen c2, bishop comes in, check, check. Whole bunch of series of checks, right? Fairly easy because white only had 1 move every time with his king, but need to be calculated. Alternatively, we have what happened in the game. We played rook e2. It's the same general idea. Notice how my queen's going to slowly sneak in. Check, check, check. Then it moves up here to queen d4. Again, threatening mate here or here. So if he tries to block like so, we've got check. And alternatively, if he tries to bring the queen back, we've got check. And then we take, and we won back the piece. We've got rook e8 coming. White could resign. Well, that's what he did, right? He resigned. And this is also, if we go back to my sacrifice, rook takes e3. If you were to take the bishop instead, this is quite easy. You would simply take here. And then I win the piece. I'm up a piece, and this is easy at this point. Rook e8 is still coming with potential deadly threats. And that's game. So I was kind of proud of that little finish there. Maybe it wasn't that hard, maybe it's not that brilliant, right? But I should pat myself on the back because my training is paying off, even if I play like crap in the opening. So again, just a quick recap of this game. What happened? So if we look at this, whoa, I made sort of the first mistake. I underestimated this open, or I didn't estimate at all the open e file, and so I just played a normal move. And then a second normal move. I never asked myself what was the threat, what was my opponent's idea. I'm just assuming, oh, he's making mistakes, he's making random moves, which is you never want to do. He got into a great position here. Now, what's the essence of this position? This is what we need to ask ourselves. You have 2 bishops, white. You got a passed d-pawn, right? And so we need to think about pushing this pawn. You get that push in, if you can do that successfully, I don't know if you're going to win, but you've got an incredible game. Absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, he got distracted, I think, by the secondary motive about my king still stuck in the center, which is true. A few moves ago, that was the whole theme. My king's in the center, and so we're taking advantage, right? But now the position is shifted, right? We're not going to take advantage of the king. We got to get this d6 in. If we can get that in, golden. And then the second thing is you move very quickly, which is fantastic. Oh, rook takes e5, overlooking this check and the synergy between the queen and the knight. Then once that happened, I guess maybe this game, rest of it isn't incredibly interesting, but there's this little dance, making sure d6 doesn't happen, pressuring the brand new weakened of the white king. And then I finished off here with a nice little sacrificial finish, which for me counts as major tactics. Okay, so that's it. There's a quick analysis for you. I wanted to get this out while it was fresh in my mind. I thought it was a really interesting game, and I think that idea of moving d6, of bringing our pieces to life, even if it sacrifices a pawn. It doesn't sacrifice a pawn in the position I looked at earlier, right here, because you're just going to win it right back anyway. And we can see how the bishop has increased tremendously. Here, it's got 2 squares and doesn't do much on either of them. After whoops, not that. After here, the bishop can go all the way down. It's pressuring the rook. Maybe we've got some checks coming in here, right? There's ideas, great ideas. Get the bishops into the game, okay? Those are my thoughts of this game. So that's that. Again, I'm SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You can like, subscribe. That'd be great if you want to do that. Feedback, give me feedback. I love feedback. I'm going to be playing a few of some less games in the future. Again, I've mentioned, even though I had a little sacrifice at the end, my chess is kind of deteriorating a little bit. I think I'm playing too much, or I'm stretching myself a little too thin. I'll try and still create videos, but I'm going to be playing chess less. At least for the next little bit. We'll see. And otherwise, yeah. Comment, like, subscribe, feedback. Wonderful. Check out my blog, SmithyQ.com. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.